Okay, all right. Good day, good evening, good night, everyone, wherever you are. I'm Peel Stewart from the John King Saga. This is Six Elemental Interviews. I apologize for the delay. It was my fault. We're having some technical difficulties on my
Technical
end.
difficulties, your best friend when you're streaming.
But we are finally here. And tonight, my guest is an incredible author and booktuber, someone who is, I feel, I feel slightly underdressed. She's looking fabulous.
Thank
Kind of got
you.
that carnival Mardi Gras vibe. I'm kind of, in my regular Drown Kingdom uniform, but that's how I rock it for these type of interviews. But tonight with me, I have Madame Crystal Butterfly. Madame, how are you?
I am doing very good. How are you doing?
I am fabulous, fabulous. Thanks so much for joining me. I was very excited when you agreed to an interview. You were kind enough to send me a copy of your book, Curse of the Frog Prince. I had a lot of fun with that, and we'll get into speaking about that shortly. But I just want to maybe perhaps start off the interview by finding a bit about your writing journey, how you got into writing. You're also a booktuber. I do want to delve into that, but I think if it's okay with you, I'll start with the writing side. So, how did you become a writer?
Well, me entering this whole author thing, it's not the most comfortable story, and I'm actually going to make a whole video of what initially launched me into writing because what happened was my family started going through a tough time right when I just got out of college. But when we were going through that, and I decided to become an author and enter this whole world of authordom and the writing, I had a pretty tough time because they tell you, oh, write a book. What happens after you write the book? And even while you're writing the book, there's just so much you don't know. And there are a lot of scammers out there who said, oh, I'll review your book. Just give me like $20, $200, this, that, and the other thing. And then they lie saying, I'm going to publish your book. Just give me $5,000, which is another scam. And I was being bombarded with them at the beginning of my writing journey. I was just figuring out how to write once I got the whole book thing figured out. And I was dealing with a lot. My main saving grace at first thing that saved me really was going on BookTube because there were several other authors who laid out, okay, this is how your book is structured. This is how you format. This is how you do that. And BookTube has a lot of great resources for learning certain things when you're just getting started. And later, I started going to events, all kinds of different bookish events, author events, writing events, because there are a lot of those if you find a good one that introduces you to more of the community. And one thing I am grateful with this community is authors help other authors with stuff because they know what it feels like to be lost in trying to figure all this stuff out. And I am just very happy that I'm a part of such a helpful community that is willing to do a lot just to help each other out. And more recently, even last year, I started getting on the book talk. And book talk has even more authors ready to help out, ready to help promote each other, and ready to give resources of this is what you need to do.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely, and this community is absolutely wonderful. So, and you are one to also provide advice and support. I didn't want to stray too much to the booktube side yet because I really want to delve into that separately. But you're quite a popular booktuber, you have a very large following. A lot of your videos are very inspirational. A lot of them are geared towards advice, trying to steer authors in the right path so they don't fall into some of the pitfalls that you mentioned. But once you decided you were going to write and you decided you were going to publish, what was the thought process there? Did you think about querying and traditionally publishing? Was it only self-pub that you were interested in? Were you thinking about something between like a hybrid press? What was the thought process there?
Well, the thought process was it reflected that I royally didn't know jack about the publishing industry. That was the original thought process because I didn't entertain self-publishing just because I didn't know what self-publishing even was. You know, we grow up, we always say, oh, you need to sign with a publisher. And they're like, keep your stuff a secret, find a publisher, and they'll publish you. They don't tell you that you don't go directly to a publisher. You have to write a query letter and get a literary agent, and they go to the publisher. They don't tell you that. So
Yeah.
I at first thought, oh, I have to go to a publisher. Then I found out literary agent. I didn't know what literary agent meant. So when I was trying to find out what literary agent meant, and I'm saying this compulsively just to protect anybody who wants to write and they're trying to get in this business. If anybody says, pay them and they'll make sure your book gets published, kindly walk away from that person because they're trying to scam you, because that was who I was approaching when I was looking for advice, because I just typed it into Google. What do I do with finding literary agents? What does a literary agent do? It just went straight to these vanity publishers who are asking for money to publish a book, and most of them don't really publish it. And if they do, a lot of them just screw you over. But with that, I didn't know what I was doing. And as I was trying to learn, well, how do I get traditionally published? I learned about self-publishing. And when I learned about self-publishing, I decided, you know what? I could try to write a query letter and all this stuff, but it may be better for me to self-publish, because then I get to keep my story more how I want it. Because when you traditionally publish, I'm not against people who do, but when you do traditionally publish, you're going to have to compromise with some things and change some stuff around. And traditional publishers, a lot of times, even when they put out something we find a bit, oh, that's new, wow, most of the time they like to play it safe, and they will take a lot of the unique stuff out of the book.
No, I totally agree. And a lot of us in the self-published indie sphere are finding that when we have lots of friends who are traditionally published, and we realize that as much as there's a lot of advantages, there's a lot of disadvantages, and the grass is not always greener on that side of the fence, for sure. So once you went through your process, you decide to get published. So when you decide to get published, did you do like a launch? Did you have bloggers like doing reviews of your books? Did you post it on social media? How did you get the word out there about your book?
I mostly did posting through social media. And this is when I was still small time. So I was trying to do most of this through Facebook and Instagram. Back then, it was easier to use Instagram. So I was getting some traction with Instagram, even though it wasn't bigger yet. But I eventually was really, I'm going to blame my cousin for this. To my cousin, who knows they were the one who suggested this, and I will tell you, yes, you did if you say no. They were seeing all my posts on Facebook, and they're like, you would be great on YouTube. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. And they're like, seriously, you would be good at the YouTube thing. I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. Being on camera, on video, I don't know if I want to do that. And over time, as he kept saying YouTube, now I was late to the YouTube party too, because for the most part, I wasn't watching all the social media sites back then. But then he nagged me. He didn't nag me a ton, but he nagged me a few times. And so I was deciding, what, let me check out YouTube a bit more. And I started watching video game Let's Players. And the more I watched those Let's Players, I'm like, well, they're able to get on camera and play video games all day. There's nothing preventing me from getting on camera and talking about books. I mean, it's not like I'm going to do something super crazy and outlandish. Why not?
Yeah, and obviously that was one of being quite successful for you and led to your own YouTube channel, which seems to be quite popular. So what was the response from so now that the book is out there, you're getting some reviews, probably a lot of them positive, but what was the general response, and how did you feel once you published the book, you're getting the response that you're getting? What was the feeling, and was it more of a, okay, this is fantastic, on to the next book, or was it, I want to go in a different direction now that I published this book? We have part one, and then of course you're looking to do a part two. Maybe I want to do prequels.
Part two out right now.
Oh, beautiful cover. I love the cover.
Yeah, I have part two out right now. I'm currently working with the hardback of part two, because part one, you have the paperback to Curse of the Frog Prince up, and I recently got it redone by one of my friends in hardback
Oh,
and
stunning.
with with green pages,
Wow.
along with this very nice. Let me see if I can turn to the page. Okay, book. We don't have. Okay, here we go. Green pages with this lovely chapter art.
Stunning.
Yeah, it's very
It's
pretty. I've
beautiful. It's
noticed a lot
beautiful.
of people are more attracted to the green pages than any of them.
Well, I'll definitely have to pick that up. That is beautiful. So book comes out. Now you're on to making hardbacks. You're doing all this fantastic stuff. How does it feel to be essentially an entrepreneur? Because for as indies, we're doing our own thing. We're taking care of the marketing. Not that traditionally published authors don't have to do a certain degree of marketing themselves, because they do. Because sometimes they don't unfortunately get the support of their publishing house, especially if you're a smaller author. You're doing the marketing. You're doing the social media. You're making the book. You're writing the book. You're there, everything involved with that. How does it feel to be an entrepreneur? And is this, if you don't mind asking, is this a full-time endeavor? Is this something you're doing, part-time as a hobby? And how has it been going?
It's a full-time endeavor. So far, it's going good, which I'm glad I'm starting to build more of a fan base for my books. So I am really enjoying being an entrepreneur, especially since I decided to make my life a little bit harder and join another author with hosting a podcast called As the Pages Turns. We are political news, but we're also a bookish news podcast because we decided, because I don't do author advice as much on my YouTube channel anymore because I felt like I was repeating, and I figured if I do more author advice, it's going to be something that's not really talked about. So my friend was like, we should do a podcast reporting book news and political news, and we keep them both separate on the podcast. So if you just want to hear the book news, you can do that without hearing politics. But we did it because we noticed that there are a lot of good things going on in the book world with publishing and everything, and some bad stuff. And we thought, let's start this podcast because then we can warn people about the bad stuff and get more attention to the good stuff going on. And it's the As the Pages Turns podcast. And I like the fact that since I am independent author, I have the ability to do that. Even my own YouTube channel, I do a lot of book reviews to help promote other authors and just let people, well, I'm really trying to just make people more aware of these authors and their books. So I've been doing a lot of book reviews, and I like the fact that also, since I'm more indie and entrepreneur, I have the ability to even promote more of my fellows, in addition to being able to promote my other stuff on social media and help me build more of an audience.
Yeah, that is fabulous. And kudos to you for all you're doing to help other authors. This is what I love about community support. The fact that, you start writing a book and, it seems at first, oh, this is something I'm just going to do in isolation. But then you realize, no, it's a whole community that floats you up there, and you're part of it, and you float back and you give back. And that's awesome. And certainly that's the type of person you are. And you should be commended for it. So Curse of the Frog Prince, you write this book, and it's a wonderful fairy tale. And, I do want to ask you, it's a fairy tale. It's African inspired, clearly, but it's your slant on a very classic fable. What made you decide to write this book this way?
Well, it's kind of funny. I originally had no interest in writing this book. I hadn't even thought about it. I am working on the first book I ever conceived to write, Bloody Crown, which I'm still working on, was my main focus. And I had another book, which I also have published, called Violet Evergreen and the Seeds of Rebellion. I was working on those two books. Violet is published. Bloody Crown I'm still working on. But I was just so focused hardcore on those two. And then I went to a author event. It was my first one when I was trying to learn more about what do I need to do. And the authors there said, while you're working on your really big books, it would be a good idea to write a shorter book. And I was thinking, I am not doing that. I have two books I'm working on. Where am I going to have time to find this? I barely know what I'm doing with this whole writing thing. So I was thinking, no, absolutely not. And as I was leaving to go to my car, like a brick to my head or something, the full idea for Curse of the Frog Prince popped into my mind, starting with how it would end. And I was like, oh my goodness, I guess I have to write this. And it turned into the first book that I published.
Wow, that's fantastic. What a story. So I just want to go back there for a second. So you said that the idea for the book popped into your head and you visualized the ending of the book before you even wrote it. Like you knew how the story was going to end. Is that
There
something
were a few surprises as books do, but yeah.
So do you feel that was unusual? Do you feel that because I do that a lot myself. I know a lot of writers, they kind of write the ending of the book first. But was that something did you feel was more difficult for you? And was that a first? Because you already have another book published, you're writing another bigger book. Was it the same with those ones that you saw the ending first and then you went back and wrote the book? Or was it something that, you weren't sure what the ending is going to be and you started from the beginning and went forward?
It's the only book I've written where I was able to see the ending. All my other books, like my most recently published book, Perilous Love for Christmas, which I'm working on part 2 right now, True Love for Christmas, which is coming out next month. All of these other books, that one and my other books I published, I don't know really the ending too well. Sometimes I have an idea of how it's going to end, but I don't know it too well, and I have to go on the journey. Curse of the Frog Prince is the only one that showed me the ending first, and it remained the same way.
Okay. So when you saw the ending, you wrote the book, did it turn out the way you thought it would, considering that you knew the ending kind of prior to actually putting pen to paper, key to keyboard? Did it turn out the way you thought that it would?
Only the ending part did. The very last scene in the book that you read that we're not going to reveal because spoilers. You got to read it, but only that part is the only part that was there and remained unchanged. Everything else, when I saw the beginning and went on the journey with that part of the story, there was stuff that would flip through and change. I just had a solid idea of where the story was going, no matter what, and the ending just stayed solidified in stone.
Wow. Okay. All right. So delving you get into the nitty gritty, you chose to write essentially a fairy tale based on a very popular fable. You gave it an African-inspired tint that was fabulous. So you have a princess, and she's in a very unhappy marriage to a very cruel person.
Unhappily engaged.
Yes, engaged. They're engaged, and they're on their way to what would seem to be, definitely, if it comes to fruition, a very unhappy marriage, and she's also has feelings for somebody else. So what and why did you decide to put all those elements into the story?
I don't 100% know, because that was my muse in full control. The muse just tells you what to do. All I know is when I was writing it with the princess's romantic interest, he was a character that came out of nowhere. And then even when I finally got introduced to Frog, because the Frog was actually the first character I saw when I saw the ending, it was interesting. They all just came in kind of like in a way I didn't plan. Because when I was writing up to where she would meet the Frog, I didn't really plan that. It just popped in my head when I got closer to it.
Okay.
Because my book story in general is just, I would say for my first story, my later stories, I do a partial outline. I don't do a full outline. I have more of an idea of which way to go. With that story, it was more, let me see where I'm going, because it just wanted to kind of show me the way as I wrote it, not so much as let me plan anything. My other stories, I do a little plan, but that's the only one I'd say I was full plotting.
Okay. Well, it certainly turned out really well. One thing I loved about Curse the Frog Prince was, in terms of the main character, Akinyi, she is someone who she goes through a lot. She endures a lot. She's very resilient. She's very resourceful. She doesn't take crap. She's very, someone who, she understands the situation she's in, and she's going to find a way around it one way or another. And I love main characters that have that perseverance and that gumption. Is that how, and that's how it came off to me as the reader. Obviously the author is the one who writes their book with intention. What was your intention with this character? Were they perhaps based on people that you knew, or was it more trying to stick true to the character in the original fairy tale? What that main character, Akini, what was she based on?
Well, she's definitely not based off of the original Princess from the Frog Prince story. That princess, I never liked her because she was a spoiled brat. And then she tries to unalive the frog and then he wants to marry her. I'm like, so yeah, that's nice. You're happily married to somebody who just tried to end you.
Yeah.
But definitely not based off of her. But Kenya, I would say she's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of strong women, I would say, from history that I have learned about. Because I'm thinking she's in this situation, and I've got to think about other women who have also been in these really, really, really tough situations. And I think how they endured, how they were able to push through and persevere. And I keep thinking about that because I'm thinking all of these women from history who pushed through, persevered when they were in the worst situation, they were in the toughest situation, everything. I'm just thinking that's who she needs to be like. Like she needs to be more like a Harriet, more willing
Yeah.
to, no matter how bad this is, she has to push through and fight through, even though this is clearly a nightmare that she did not sign up for.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I love again, I love that resilience. I want to quickly say a big shout out to Lucas Clay. Hey, Lucas, thanks for coming by and check it out, Madam Crystal Butterfly. Awesome to see you. Lucas is a fabulous fella. Um, so you have this main character who also has a lot of great. There's a lot of great auxiliary characters. There's a lot of great people in her life supporting her and surrounding her in the story. She has some really good friends. She has some good family. So uh, I think one thing that really makes great fiction books, besides the main characters, great secondary characters. Are the secondary characters based on anyone in particular? You have, for example, Akini's grandmother. You have the character of Delu, who I really loved. Are these characters based on people that other historical figures? Where'd you get the secondary characters from?
The secondary characters just showed up, to be honest. I was writing about her, and the other characters just showed up around her. And when I was writing the other characters, there was this determination to make them feel more realistic. Because I was thinking, how would you interact with your friends, especially if you're in a bad situation with them? What kind of support would your friends give you when they know you're stuck in the situation? You're being forced to figure everything out with barely any help. What kind of interaction would happen? Although Daylu was an interesting character because she went back and forth between being a kid and an adult when I was first writing her, before I finally settled, just make her grown. Why are you trying to make her a little girl? But it was just more, I liked her relationship with Akenyi the most because I wanted to show somebody who, when you're in that situation, who has your back. Because then, that's more believable, because they always show these people in stories where they're completely on their own with no support, nobody pushing through this. And you want me to fully think everybody with absolutely no support is not going to break. Like, what would happen if you don't have anybody to talk to? And I'm realizing the main reason why Kenya is able to really push the way she is because she has people she can talk to and voice her frustrations, because a person can't keep all of that just bottled up inside them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I love the secondary character that the way that they were so much in her corner and willing to listen to her and understand her problems and be willing to do that. I think as well, I found that, the tale was well written. It was also they had some really compelling themes and somewhat dark, right? I think
Mhm.
you pretty well advertised the book as this is a dark twist on the original fairy tale.
Yeah, it's
Well,
funny actually. Now you mentioned that. I'm glad I got mostly good reviews, but my lower ranking reviews were critical because they said that one, Amazon actually deleted this review. I kind of wish they didn't because it made me laugh. But someone said that, oh, I was trying to corrupt children with this book. And I'm like, I have for older teens and adults on all capital letters in the description. I have it before you get to the first chapter. I have it on the cover. And then somebody else wrote a review saying, I don't like profanity and I appreciate that this author told me there's profanity in the book. Also, this author said it's for older teens and adults, so I don't see why anyone would be upset. That just made me laugh because I was like, how come do people just see frog prints and they don't want to think anything else? You don't want to see right under there for older teens and adults.
yeah, and I that was it's clearly an adult tale, and I think one thing about an adult tale is that for people who read the original tale in their childhood, and we all grow, we all mature. I think our reading tastes tend to grow and mature as well. Do you think that someone who, as a child, so now you're reading your book, there's that somewhat sense of familiarity that it's based on original tale. However, this is very different, your fresh, unique, original spin on it. Do you think that this is definitely something that people who read the original tale way back, this is something they'll want to read if their reading tastes have matured that way?
I would say this is somebody, if you're a fan of the original story and you wanted this to in any way encompass the original story, I'm sorry, this is a completely new story. Only thing I saved from the original story was a lake and a golden ball and a princess
Yeah.
and a frog. He's not even the type of frog that was in the original story. I think the original story had a bullfrog. This is a red-eyed tree frog.
Yeah, and with those differences, again, we know that it's inventive and it's fresh, but yet there's still that, I think, at least for me initially when I saw the title, it brought me back to my childhood, thinking, oh, okay, this is somewhat of a dark fairy tale, but it's there's still that linchpin, that tie, I think, with the title, and because you could have taken anything, and but you chose to, kind of invoke that frog prince thing. Is it something that so now people have read it and they've read the original tale? Has the feedback been largely positive about what your spin has been?
Dominantly positive. A lot of people really like what I did with making the princess a stronger character. That has been the main comment I have been getting hearing from people is they like how I did the princess, how I did not make her this weak person waiting for somebody to save her. They like that she's proactive in trying to save herself. And one thing I did forget about it from the story, one thing I did keep from the original story is she has to make a deal with the frog. Just like in the original story, there was a deal made. Here's a deal, is also a deal made.
Yes, yes, and like I said, I loved your twists and turns. I also want to comment on the fact that, and I this is something I really admire about authors. Something I actually did myself with my first book. So in your book, it ends on a cliffhanger. So this isn't a big spoiler, but it ends on a cliffhanger. So I think it takes a lot of daring, and I think it's one of the great things about being an indie author that you kind of can, break a lot of the so-called writing conventions. And I personally love books that end on a cliffhanger because I think, if anything, it keeps you intrigued and enthralled and really want to read the next book, especially if it's a series, right? So,
Mhm.
what went into that decision of you decide, you know what, I'm going to let this thing end on a cliffhanger, throw out all the so-called rules that you can't do that, it has to be a complete story. What went into that?
Well, first, I thought I was writing a complete story when I started on it. I really thought I was writing a complete story. I thought after I saw what was the end, I would learn more and write some more. But when I got to the end, my brain was like, okay, you're not going past here for this book. You are going to stop right here. There are going to, for Curse of the Frog Prince, there are going to be 3 books. But the series is called The Butterfly Tales, which is my series of fairy tale retellings because when the story of Curse of the Frog Prince ends, I will be starting my next part of the series that takes place in the same world, but it will be the story of a merman and him deciding whether or not to leave his home because things are very bad.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, it was not, this whole Butterfly Tales series, everything was not planned. When I got to the end, I thought I was going to keep going. But once it hit that ending point where you read, my brain was like, no, you are not going to tell anything else. You're going to have to write another book. And I thought part 2 was where it was going to end, but now I know for a fact, because when I knew about it was going to be a part 2, part of my brain was telling me there's going to be 3 stories. I only wanted there to be 2 stories, but when I finished part 2, I accepted there are going to be 3 stories in this series. Nothing you can do about it. Now write the story.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So we can look forward to part 2. So that is awesome.
Yes, part 2, which is available now.
Fantastic. So that is Curse of the Frog Prince. Can you tell us a bit about? So you talked about Violet Evergreen and the Seeds of Rebellion. I haven't read that book, but for our audience, also hasn't read it, but maybe perhaps they've read Curse of the Frog Prince or they've read Violet Evergreen or something else you've written. What is Violet Evergreen about?
Violet Evergreen is a very interesting story. I had read a story, if you know about this app called Episode, which is a bunch of interactive stories. I was playing that, and I'm not going to name the story I was reading just because I don't want anybody who wants to just hate on something for the sake of hating on it, to start trying to trash it. But it was one of their stories that was one of their top stories, and I was reading it. And towards the middle, I hated the story. I just wanted to get to the end out of curiosity, and the ending was not a satisfying ending. And my mind was all like, well, I could write a better story than that. So I start writing the story and it goes and completely veers off into an entirely new story. Because in Violet Evergreen's world, everybody has magical powers. They're mythical creatures that aren't mythical. They're just like creatures that live in that world, everything. And it's a modern story where she lives in Atlanta, everything. When she was a little girl, somebody unalived her parents. They don't know who did it, but the police automatically blamed her. They claimed she had something called UMD, unstable magic disorder. And when they made that claim, they didn't give solid evidence. Her family, she actually comes from a family with a lot of money, and that's good when you live in a dystopian world because they are living in a very dystopian world. They were like, no, she's not. And they were expecting, because some relatives came out of nowhere to take custody of her that's when the whole UMD thing was getting even worse, because they're like, well, she has UMD. You're not going to be able to take good care of her and everything. And these other relatives, they're not as rich as the prominent family. The family with all the money who cares about her, you would expect to win custody of her. But instead, it's the relatives who she's just met. They're kind of sketchy, and they don't have anywhere near as much money. And that's kind of weird, don't you think? Yeah, why would the rich family with all this respect, all these resources and stuff, lose a custody battle to these people? And the family with the money made a deal with the other relatives that, hey, you live with us, we'll provide you with this, that, and other thing, just to keep her close, because they didn't like the idea of her being alone with them. And they're like, okay, fine. Fast forward to when she's an adult. They're forcing her to have a starvation diet. She is being forced to go on dates with a bunch of pompous assholes, like the type of guys, I don't know if you have a daughter, but it's the type of guy you would probably be like, don't even take one step towards her. It'd be the one you're ready to punch, that they're trying to get her to, hang out with and all this stuff. So any dude with a kid, with a little girl or adult daughter, trust me, it'd be the dude you're ready to punch. And that's who they're making her date. And she's getting frustrated because they put all kinds of spells on her to control her, claiming it's because of her unstable magic disorder. And she's getting frustrated. She's being forced to go out with these people. She doesn't like them. And, they want her to date them in order to, with the expectation of marriage. And she don't want to marry that fool or anything like that. And she's frustrated because they could only let her eat a starvation diet. She's not allowed to go out and do stuff. All her friends are in college. She wants to go to college. And she's starting to just want to rebel against all of this stuff. And she decides one day that she's just not going to deal with it anymore. She's not going to let these people try to control her. And this is the beginning of the story of her starting to fight back against her abusers. And she's also wondering who unalived her parents. Who took them out, and why are the police not paying attention to that? Because, like I said, her family has money. They have prominence. How come there's not more of an investigation in this? Why are they trying to accuse her of having something? What is really going on here? Because this, like I said, from setup is pretty weird. Why is she going through this? And she decides in this to fight back, and she is going to be discovering a lot of messed up stuff in her fight to gain her own freedom and learn what really happened.
Wow. Okay. Well, this sounds fascinating, man. This sounds awesome. So, if you're not aware of that story by Madame Crystal Butterfly, check it out. Violet Evergreen and the Seeds of Rebellion. So yeah, it sounds like you have a great body of work so far.
Yes, and I may or may not have unleashed a demon on the city of Atlanta. You'll have to read to see if that's true.
All right. Okay. Well, that's going on the TBR. Now you also have two, and correct me if I'm wrong, please do. You have two separate series going on. One is Matrimony, and the other one is Christmas Mafia. So can you tell us a bit about those series as well, please?
Yeah, I have 3 other series. Okay, I have the Butterfly Tales series, as I told you. Then I have the Violet Evergreen series that we just talked about. Then there's Realms, followed by Matrimony, and then the Christmas Mafia series. And I'm also working on a bunch of other series because clearly my brain won't stop giving me book ideas, but these are the ones that are published right now. And Matrimony was an interesting story because it also evolved. It evolved from a story I didn't like. It was on an audio books thing called The Billionaire's Accidental Bride. I didn't like it because it started out really, really interesting, but towards the middle, I started asking what was the point of the story, because you get characters who are against the main character for reasons. And I can't justify the reasons because it felt just unnecessarily petty. And then my brain started shifting the story, and I thought, because the premise from The Billionaire's Accidental Bride is this guy had to get married and this woman got dumped by her fiance. So she just wanted to marry him just because. And I'm like, okay. So the first story in my Matrimony series is my story, Wedded Bliss. And this woman, this character named Tula, she's about to marry her long-term boyfriend, but she's estranged from her family because they don't like him.
Okay.
And she's trying to push herself into this marriage. She's been in this relationship for a long time. And when she gets to the altar, gets to the courthouse to get married, he doesn't show up. He's like, oh, we could get married next week or something. I got to deal with this. And him doing that to her then just finally causes her to break. She's like, why am I even in this relationship? We've been together for years, and this is suspicious. That is suspicious. There's a lot of stuff going on. She's like, does he even really value me? And she's thinking she needs to just walk away. And when she sees a guy screaming on his cell phone, talking about how he needs to hurry up, get married, and everything else, she walks up to him since he seems desperate for a wife, and she just wants to get married in that moment because she's got the dress, you know. So he's like, you seem desperate for a wife, and I just got ditched by my fiance. You want to get married? At first, he's like, no, I don't want to take advantage of this situation here. Yes, I am desperate, but he's like, no, I'm desperate, but I don't want to take advantage like this. But then he thinks for a minute, and he has to get married on that day at a specific time. So he gives in, and the two of them decide, okay, we're going to get married. Okay. And it's cute and everything. And here I am leaving the romantic rom-com because I always have to twist my character's world up. I can't give them an easy ride because then my readers can't have fun. So she goes to his house. He's got all the monies and all that. She's thinking, oh, she gets married into the good life. Then a bunch of creepy stuff happens, and vampires may be involved.
Okay. Well, this sounds fascinating, really fascinating. So check that out. Okay, so that's that series. So your other two series now.
The first story in my Realm series is Realms the Hidden Fairy, focusing on a character named Willow. She is 18. And she's about to go to college and everything. And she's trying to figure some stuff out because when she was a little girl, her aunt had to escape with her. And she doesn't know why. She doesn't know what happened to her parents. Her aunt tries to tell her what happened. Then she gets into this weird terror freak out that just overwhelms her, and she cannot talk about it. Her aunt's boyfriend has offered to get her therapy. She won't do it. And Willow doesn't know why her aunt won't get therapy. Willow also doesn't know why her aunt is refusing to marry her boyfriend because they've been together for years, and he's been constantly trying to get her into the idea. She's wondering, what is so mysterious? What really happened to my parents? What's going on here? And so she's getting ready to maybe embark on a journey to find out what really happened to her parents. And her friends are talking about joining her on this journey. And she's taking a moment to think about it because she's thinking, okay, I need to figure this out. We'll go to the area my aunt mentioned that we were, maybe search around and try to figure all this out. And she's sitting in the park, it's late. She's thinking, oh, I should get ready to go home because, it's late and everything. She gets up, she's ready to go. Next thing she knows, she runs into a fairy battling for her life against a troll. And she helps the fairy, but in helping the fairy, she learns there's some bigger things going on, and that might even play into the question she's trying to find out.
Okay. Wow. Another series that sounds absolutely fascinating. So finally, your last series you spoke about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Christmas Mafia is interesting because what happened was I was on the Ticker Talker, and I saw this ad of this little girl trying to get money to save her mother from some illness or something, and I found it interesting enough to want to watch it. It's one of those really cheap dramas they're always advertising. So I was like, okay, let me check this out. And I watch it. It's this guy, he has to find this woman with this pure peach mark because he's pure peach something. I don't fully remember what it is because it sounded dramatic. But he's got to find the one with that mark, get her into bed with him in order to get some curse off of him. But if he sleeps with her, she's going to unalive. But if he doesn't do the thing, he'll unalive. So he's searching for the woman, finds her, and, as he gets to know her, he kind of likes her. And I'm like, I could do this, but maybe with magic and mobsters. And so I decided in this story, the dude, his ancestor pissed off a powerful sorcerer. I cannot justify why his ancestor pissed off a powerful sorcerer. It feels like a very, very, very dumb thing to do. But it was like so stupid. And the sorcerer cursed all the men in the family. That they have to find this woman. It doesn't appear on the woman till really she's 19, but this poinsettia mark will appear on this woman. And if the guy doesn't hook up with her, he's going to die. And so they have to, the male member, when they reach a certain age, has to find the woman. So that is what the main character is. Now, they've already found his woman because they hired a pimp with some arcane magic to locate her. So everything's hunky-dory, especially since in this world, the United States of America is no longer a democratic republic. Well, constitutional republic. It's no longer a constitutional republic. It is a kingdom. We have a king, and women are controlled via these magical red cards. From birth, a red card is put on a woman, and whichever man owns her, whether it be her father, her brother, or some other male, he can use the red card to control her unless he decides to burn the red card. So the woman in this situation with the poinsettia mark, she has to go through with this marriage. But she doesn't know the full thing with the curse. She just knows she has to sleep with the dude. And when the two finally meet, he starts to like her. So he keeps pushing it off, trying to find a way to save her. Meanwhile, she's trying to figure out, now because he does free her, she's trying to figure out, well, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want? At the same time as both of them are going through this, there's a lot more to that poinsettia mark than either of them know, and a lot more secrets going on in this illegal gang organization than they know.
Well, again, the premises of these series sounds awesome. For those of you watching now, we're going to watch the replay. Check out Madame Crystal Butterfly. I believe all of her books, the links are down there. Also, check out Goodreads and Amazon. She sounds like she's got some really exciting stuff going on. So check out her books. So quickly for the last kind of 15 minutes-ish, I want to flip, if you don't mind, to BookTube. So again, you're a very popular booktuber. You have quite a lot of great videos. You have podcasts. As I said, a lot of your videos are great advice for authors, supporting them, trying to steer them in the right direction. You have now this presence and platform on BookTube. What have been if you don't mind asking, what have been some of the highs and the lows of being a booktuber? What's some of the advantages of deciding as an author, especially, to go out and put yourself out there and be on BookTube? So people like you and I, there's tons of authors that also have BookTube accounts. What's kind of some of the drawbacks and what's some of the big advantages that you've experienced from that?
Well, there's still the disadvantage that frustrates me, but it frustrates everybody on this platform, is trying to figure out what on earth the algorithm wants. So that's ever changing. When you think you have a formula going, they switch it up on you, for funsies. So the biggest frustration is the algorithm. I am still having a lot of fun with it because I review a lot of indie authors' books on my channel, and I like the fact that I get to bring more attention to their books. Like there was most recently for October, I read a splatterpunk book by a new author called Acidic Honey, and it was just very, very fun to read because it felt a little different how she did it, because she had a female her main character was a woman who was abused, and then her tattoos come to life to help get revenge on her abusers. And I was thinking, wow, that was such a fun book to read. So that's my most recent book review. But I also like it because it's fun to talk about a lot of stories that I don't feel are getting enough attention. And it's fun doing the videos because I get to do little different things and be silly with it.
Yeah, those are definitely, I can certainly see the advantages there and the disadvantages in that aspect. The algorithm, the almighty algorithm. I mean,
yes, all hail the algorithm.
Yeah, that's a puzzle palace. I don't know if we'll ever figure out. But how are you finding that it affects being a booktuber? Again, I think for me, I know one of the positive negatives. I love doing booktube, but it's time consuming, of course, right? And then on the other hand, you're trying to write. So how do you find balancing your time between you have all these series going on, you have all this great stuff planned, but then you have booktube as well. How do you find balancing the time, and where do you think you tend to put most of your time these days?
Well, right now, most of my time is on my podcast I'm doing with my friend. And so I'm trying to actually time shift because she's even gotten on my case about that because my books were always dominant and she's reminding me, it's fun we're doing this, but your book is dominant. So I'm trying to rebalance my time. The last 2 years were kind of hectic. So I got off my book review schedule. So my what I'm trying to do right now is get back to my old schedule where predominantly I would put away a large chunk of my day away for focusing on whichever book I am currently writing. I'm writing multiple books, but I make myself, as it gets close to the end of one story, hyper focus on that one over the others. Then with my YouTube channel, I take my time reading the author's book, maybe devoting 30 minutes to an hour for it every night so that I can get the entire book read. At the same time, I do a lot of editing for the podcast. So I am actually getting ready to reshift over to devoting maybe 3 or 4 hours to that so I can focus more on my writing.
Okay.
And then when I have to film and edit a video for my channel, I just take the full day off for that because, there's a lot that goes into it, especially since I'm using different effects and other stuff. And I use a lot of stock imagery. That one, I'll devote the full day to get the book review done.
Yeah, you have some awesome effects and great stuff. Check out Madam Crystal Butterfly's YouTube channel. Just some fabulous stuff there. Really, a lot of it really poignant, but a lot of humorous stuff as well that really will make you laugh out loud. Great insights in some of these books. And again, she's shining a light on a lot of indie authors that might not otherwise have been recognized. So I just think you're doing some fabulous stuff. So again, kudos for that. How long have you been on YouTube as a channel now?
I am not sure. I think about 4 or 5 years.
Wow, that's a long time. And I think you've seen probably in your 4 or 5 years, I think that's a pretty good shelf life to a booktube. A lot of booktubers come and go. He's probably seen a lot of channels start.
It's been predominantly book hauls where people show the book, but they will not tell me what that book is about, which I admit frustrates me because I'm like, oh, that is a pretty book. Now tell me what's about. And they're like, oh, look at the cover. I like the spine. I'm like, forget the spine. Tell me what the book is about. And only so many of them do. Most of them are just like, stare at the book.
Do you find that because, obviously the algorithm, again, as we talked about, it changes, but I think a lot of booktubers find that book reviews don't do as well as some of their other videos. And I think a lot of booktubers have gone away from doing book reviews. I haven't, but, because it doesn't click the almighty algorithm. So I guess, obviously we understand that we all want to, grow our channels to a certain point. Like some people are really, that's a big, like not as much for me, but for a lot of people, that's, for you, you're already out there. You already have that platform. You're already, once you're over 1,000 subscribers, you're in that kind of rare, which you are. But do you find that there may be a bit of a push and pull between the book reviews may or may not do as well. You can post some other content that gets more clicks. Is there a bit of a tug of war there between doing the things that will get you more views and more likes and subscribes versus doing the kind of content you really feel is important?
Yeah, it is difficult because I do sometimes feel the pull like maybe I should consider something else, but I also think if I consider something else, then in general it would be wiser to completely delete my channel and start a new one and then start from scratch. And I was thinking, I was doing this for years and occasionally giving book advice and mostly doing book reviews. The book reviews in long run are more beneficial because it helps not just me get more eyes on my book, but it helps other people who are struggling get eyes on their book. So I keep thinking, you know what, I'm just going to stick with it because I see this as more a benefit to me as a writer, even though the almighty algorithm is difficult. And I also recognize that in general, with the way YouTube is, it's wiser that I go out to different events to promote my books and my channel, because most of the time that is what has maintained my viewership. Going out and having people meet me and talk to them about this stuff, because people are interested in this. The algorithm may feel that, stuff involving books and reading is boring and all this other stuff, but there is still a lot of people in the world who like to read and enjoy a good story. And if you tell them, hey, this book is really good, or you might like it, like saying, I didn't like it, but you may really like this, and oh, here's a fun story. A lot of people are looking for that. The algorithm may not want to show them that, but I know a lot of people are still looking for that. And I know the more I go out and meet people and try to steer them towards my channel, I'm able to really help maintain and grow my audience, because I know so many people love books. And I feel like they get overshadowed, like, oh, does anybody read books anymore? When really a lot of people read. And a lot of people who say they don't read, they just haven't found the right book for them.
So well said, so exceptionally well said, Madame. Bravo. I loved what you just said there. That is amazing. So, I just want to say, please. I mean, on my part, obviously, you have to do. Especially, please don't delete your channel. I'm just now starting to get through some of the backlog of a lot of channels that I really want to focus on watching. Yours is one of them. I love your videos. I love what you've done, and obviously, like you said, you've been established.
Oh, don't worry. I'll never delete my channel. Once I put a ton of work into something, my brain may consider it, but that's not happening.
Okay, well, that's good news. That's good news, because I think you got some marvelous stuff on there for what little I've seen. Got to catch up on your videos. It'll take me a while, but yeah, and you got a couple other booktubers that I really want to get into their channels. But so again, kudos to all you do, and congratulations on all the success. You should be very proud of both the writing and the booktube side. So so as we wind down, even though there's links in the description, and I'll make sure, I apologize again, guys, for technical difficulties. We start off on Restream, now we're in StreamYard, so I'm gonna have to fix this video, put the thumbnail, delete the old one, etc. But we'll get to that. However, the links for all of Madam's YouTube and her Amazon, etc., will be in the description. However, I want to give Madame an opportunity maybe to highlight what's the best place to find you on social media, if there is one, your YouTube channel, any new projects that you could talk about that maybe people aren't aware of, or that are currently out there that you want to give a bit more love, you think people should be given a bit more love to?
Well, the best place to find me right now is, all my books right now are on Amazon, but they are also available at the Spine Bookshop in Smyrna, Tennessee. So you can find my books on Amazon at the Spine Bookshop, and you can find a link to where my books are on my website, madamcrystalbutterfly.com. Right now, I'm only selling through Amazon. I do plan to sometime this year, early next year, to sell my books directly off my site, in addition to being able to sell some book boxes. So if you like getting the book and you like book boxes, that is coming to my website. I am currently in the process of updating it, and there was a bit of a hiccup with my website designer because sadly she got pneumonia. So I'm waiting till she's better before we proceed with adding more things to the site. But you can go on my site. It has the links to all my books on Amazon. But if you don't want to get it from Amazon, because nobody's a fan of Bezos, but if you don't want to get it from Amazon, you can go to the Spine Bookshop and order my books.
Okay, fabulous. And I do hope your website designer gets better. Wishing her speedy recovery from the pneumonia. So social media is Instagram. Other than your booktube channel, is Instagram probably the best way?
Instagram and TikTok, more TikTok. My Instagram, I will admit, I have turned into a dumping ground. Instagram doesn't seem to want to be a fan of pushing my books anymore. So I have been mostly just putting things I want people to be aware of that's happening in the world. My TikTok, though, is predominantly dedicated to showing more of my books.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's TikTok and YouTube where I predominantly show my books.
Okay, fantastic. Well, madam, I just want to thank you so much for joining me. I've had such a blast chatting with you. I had such a blast reading your book.
This is very fun.
Again, everybody check out Madam Crystal Butterfly. Check out her YouTube channel. She posts some fabulous content, especially for you indie authors who are looking for some really sound and salient advice to kind of steer you away from some of the things that can, unfortunately go wrong when you're starting out and you're not aware of, of potential people that may want to take advantage of you, especially and things like that. So she also posts some great book reviews. Again, really insightful, but also really funny, like really humorous stuff that even will make you laugh out loud. So good, really good stuff on BookTube. And again, check out our books and anything else she does in her space, including her podcast that she does. So, sorry, man, Chris Wilson, I just want to clarify. So, the name of the podcast and the other person you do it with?
It's called ATPT.
ATPT.
As the pages turns, but I believe on YouTube it's labeled as ATPT. I can send you the link if you have trouble later finding it, but it should be there. And I'm doing it with author Mia Hartney, who is currently writing a dragon book, and she has her Muses series, which is about the Greek gods.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I got it. Okay, fantastic. So check out that podcast as well. Check out everything from Madam Crystal Butterfly if you want to get to know more about fabulous creative. So I want to thank you again, madam, for coming out tonight. It was great.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I had a lot of fun.
Well, it's a pleasure. To everyone in the chat who watched, who's going to be on Team Replay, thanks so much. You're what makes this type of long form content awesome. So for myself and for madam, signing off, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye now.